Hey, Jeff, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Brian, super excited to be here. I can't even wait for you to finish. I know how the interview starts because
Yeah.
I've seen so many of your things. And listen, like nobody cares about my background. What's relevant here is that I'm a big fan of your work and everything you're doing out there. And I just want to say thank you from the community. You have helped me definitely become, well, at least the guy in the office who's annoying everybody with like the videos sharing. Look, smart man, magic box knows better way. We should probably look into this and do that. But we've all really enjoyed your stuff. But just to kind of set for the audience, like I do handle managed services sales for Soft Choice. I am what you might think of as an overlay. I think of as like a Sherpa or something. But I'm helping to support about 100 account executives, solution architects, hybrid sellers, in recognizing how we can add value to customers with their IT operations, broadly speaking.
It's not an easy sale, is it?
Generally the worst, the hardest, yeah. It takes an immense amount of trust. It is an insanely complex sale. Yeah. The payoff can be large, and not just in terms of the sale, but really the tail it creates with the relationship with the customer. So it is, as I refer to it, like the sort of peak or the top of the pyramid in terms of the customer relationship. But man, it can be a struggle getting there, getting the signatures.
And what has made you good at it?
Well, I don't know. I'm still finding that out.
That's my job. I'm trying to dig it out of you.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it is, I think my superpower, to the extent that I have any talent whatsoever, is taking very complex topics and making them simple. And that pertains to technology, but it also pertains, I've found, to the relationship between parties in a complex sale, right? And so I think being direct and concise goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, which is usually the opposite as most people in that space, right?
It's amazing, Brian. Like,
it's verbose and indirect.
It's real. Let me make this as complicated and convoluted as I can. And I think that, listen, there's a lot of I don't want to say ego, but like people are getting a little bit of significance in their own mind when they tend to go on like that. But with the TikToks and the Twitter, like people's attention spans are minuscule. So like, and I'm a New Yorker, you know what I'm saying? And like, I used to serve the legal industry and the hedge fund industry, and like, those people do not have a lot of time to listen to the thing, right? It's like, get it in there. And so I think people have appreciated that, that I get to the point very quickly, very directly. And sure, there's helpful context, but that we will get to that. So like bottom line up front, hit it hard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people want to share all of that, and they think it's a differentiator, which it can be if the other person cares.
Which they don't.
Which they don't.
Let's be real, right? Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like if they're sort of bought in, or if you're really good at it, but frankly, like if you find yourself talking for any length of period, not answering a question or going on about your own thing, you're on the wrong track, right? Like rest assured. And so, I cover a lot of these reps that I'm supporting are younger, they're starting their careers. There's nerves, this sales is, I know you're keen to say, is a performance. And when they're out there performing, it's like nervous chatter, right? I get it.
Performing.
It's like, just reel it in, what I mean? Be careful. But, so I see that a lot. And I think like, here's my challenge to the reps watching. Really, I think this could go across any talking performance profession. I say to folks, just make it fit in a tweet. If you can get it into 140 characters, that's the juice. And until you get it down to that, it's too much.
Everyone likes to be verbose.
Well, talking, it's like
we're in that texting, tweeting,
Yeah.
TikTok world today that, because I upload my stuff to TikTok and it's like, I only got a minute. I thought a minute and a half
And it's
was
funny.
tight.
It's funny, right? I mean, and when you talk to the kids, I mean, and they can't comprehend watching anything for like
Right.
5 minutes, 5 minutes,
Godfather? What
like
is that?
3 hours.
That's
Like
binge watching.
that's funny. I have young kids, and like I wanted more than anything to share the experiences, some old movies, Star Wars, so they're like, Dad, you're killing me with this. Like, can't I just go back to YouTube and like, get my 5-minute dopamine fix? But
Oh.
anyway.
And what do you see most, other than talking too much? What do
Yeah.
you see most of either the reps you work with, compete against, or in general out there doing wrong?
Um, you know, I think like there is it's natural to see the benefit for us. Like that's the focus. That's why we're here. I get it. We get it. And it's not going to be rocket science or a breaking news flash to say, listen, you've really got to think about your customer and the benefit to them. And it's so fundamental. And I wish that I had something more super deep to share, but it is, a relentless focus on the fundamentals, like just taking your customer's perspective and thinking through how they perceive value. Man, I'll tell you, well, listen, we all have to get better forever at that skill, but like that is sort of the one thing that I find myself wishing folks would think even more deeply about.
Yeah. Because your background, operations,
All
customer.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've
Yeah.
had that perspective that a
Mhm.
lot of people that you work with haven't.
It is interesting. I've always been very service oriented, I mean, and it started waiting tables and bartending in college, right? And stuff
No,
like that. And
exactly. Yeah.
it's really satisfying to serve people and to help them out. And that carried on for me through like, being in IT and solving technical challenges. Like it's very satisfying. It continued into an entrepreneur. I was a CEO for 7 years, and that's really where I discovered sales. Right? It is the next natural evolution in serving your constituency or your customers and helping solve a problem really in this new way. And so I probably, like a lot of people, had that feeling of sales and like convincing people is weird. And like,
Well,
it was, but like it very organically occurred to me as like, especially running your own business, right? Where it was like, yeah, look, I'm solving this IT challenge, but now I need to connect the dots for them and I need to correct their mistaken perceptions a lot of
yep.
times and help them see a better way. And I love it. And so I am a former entrepreneur. I work for a larger company now, but I get to focus on the stuff that I love, right? And that I hope that energy comes through when I connect with customers, and that's another thing that's made me successful.
Yeah. And it seems like a lot of people come out of that service industry or the hospitality
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I've heard a few of your interviews, say that too. I mean, like, look, when you're a kid or a young person getting started, like it's a good way to make money. And it's what's really cool is that those lessons can continue to serve you in
yep.
just about whatever you do, and in sales in particular, right? So
Right. Because if you don't do that, how do you learn it?
yeah.
College
Yeah.
doesn't teach it.
No, that's what's so funny, right? There really is no course in it per se, and frankly, even if somebody sat you down and gave you a lecture,
No, you have to do it night after
yeah,
night. You have to like get the zero tip or the walkout or the
yeah,
something that was like, what did I do to
yeah, yeah,
understand that,
exactly.
waiting
And
an
so
hour for your food is not going to help.
I'll tell you, I had a really fun. I just thought of this. It's so fun. I've been thinking about this interview for 3 days, and this one story just occurred to me right now. I had like the worst summer job ever, Brian. You're actually gonna love this. One summer, I think I responded to like a newspaper ad, and I was literally going door to door selling like pagers. right? This
That's
had to be like 97 or 98. I mean, couldn't have been
at peak pager.
yeah, basically peak pager. I couldn't have been 19. And I was never an outgoing person. And a lot of my friends and coworkers are going to hear that and be like, are you kidding me? But like at the time, I was not sure of myself. And it really helped me get out of my comfort zone and learn to flex this muscle to connect with people in a very awkward, sort of way. But we would go into bars in the middle of the day. We'd go like at grocery stores, like, and yeah, like, we tossed them the pager, or whatever. I mean, it was really, I cut my teeth on that for one summer, excuse me, trying to do door-to-door pager sales. And man, it was like
commission only, I assume.
Oh yeah, I think 100%. It was a total pyramid scheme if I think back, but like.
Oh, I see. You get more and more your buddies to
yeah. You had to like rope them in. But it was obviously a very formative experience in terms of just learning to connect with people and getting out of your shell and out of your comfort zone. But I was glad to be done with it. But it did help me, I think, years later, just be comfortable approaching people.
But why not stay in services or operations or leadership?
Yeah, I mean, sales, it really became like my passion, right? I mean, I think that like it is so challenging in this new stimulating way. And obviously the satisfaction's immense when it comes together. Managed services is a devil of a problem. It's very hard for both customers and service providers to really get their arms around, but like, if it were easy, it wouldn't be a problem. You know what I mean? Well, and so, what do you think?
Yeah, because I've got a lot of people in my courses that are managed services. And it's like, you got a lot of people who do it. Yeah. Everyone's got some way of doing it already. Nobody's going from paper to computers anymore. Yeah. They're already on computers. And, you got to start there. You got to build trust. And it takes a long time.
Yeah. And I think like the only way as a business, I mean, it makes sense is like if you're serving the needs of the customer kind of up and down the stack, right? Yeah. Like it's got to be a part of the overall value your company brings. Because yeah, I mean, one sales cycle can take a year, without problems. But there's lots of other ways to serve the company and make money kind of in the meantime. I mean, it all sort of feeds itself, but finding new ways to add value is the challenge in that industry since it has become very competitive. Yeah.
And where do you fit in the sales process? Sounds, because overlay, some people may not understand what that is.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. And we spend a lot of time like
arguing about that.
Yeah, arguing, exactly. Debating on where Jeff should come into that process. But like, look, it's like you have to recognize sort of the weather report, as I call it, in your account with your customer. Which way is the wind blowing? Is there new leadership? Do they have a strong case for change? Yep. I'm smiling because oh my God, my former boss and mentor, like, we would talk all the time about the case for change. But they're truly like, in order for a company to make a shift of this magnitude, like there has to be some really strong prevailing winds and stuff going on inside of their company and their business. So we start by training the reps to really look for like the context and some of that, things to listen for, things to look for, things to suggest, right? So we train by getting them to kind of recognize the opportunity, and then it's just high level qualification. Like, should you change? Is now the right time? Are we the right partner? Okay. Like, let's just start there. You know what I mean? And
it sounds like they pull you in when?
Basically when those questions have been answered, ideally. You know what I mean? Like if we know that they can't afford the status quo, that's a great indicator, but it's hard. It can be hard to even answer that question, right? So, reps have to go sometimes 2 or 3 levels deep with the customer. Like, well, why is that? Tell me more. You know what I mean? And really understanding why, that even the customer might have this very clear idea about, hey, we need managed services. Okay, but like understand why, and that will shorten the sales cycle and, you know, further qualify the deal. And so that's another thing, going back to your earlier question, that like, what do we see reps not do a lot of times? And it's the meta, right? It's like, there's one thing that the customer's saying to you out of their mouth, but the meta is like, what's going on underneath that? Yeah. And if you can get folks to kind of stop and digest what the customer just said and think about the underlying reasons and the context, you know, why is that really important to you, Mr. Customer, kind of thing? Like,
yeah, I kind of call it sales therapy, because sometimes they don't even know.
Totally.
So you have to like, well, what's behind that? What happened before this? Right. And
that's a great way to put it. Of course it is. Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, for new reps, like, this was the other theme I wanted to touch on today, which was that, like, you know, we were saying like sales is really just this other way of serving the customer, but the fun thing about sales is it's a bit of a tango, right? There's this like dance in that, like, we can't purely be focused on serving the customer because we still need our needs serviced as well.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the trick, right? So it's like, you know, so often they're just in a rush to, hey, the customer told me to fetch a rock. Where's the nearest rock? I gotta get a rock.
Right. We're not dogs.
Yeah, somebody get a rock. The customer said get a rock. Like, calm down. Like, let's just figure out why exactly.
Well, that's where that service, what they call an engineering service, not you know, fetching, but solving. Right. Exactly. Diagnosing.
Exactly. Yeah. The therapy thing, right? Like, what is this? Okay. Like, explain to me while the rock is
cool. You have to first admit that they don't know what they really want, or why they want it, or what they really think they want.
Man, it's so true. Exactly. Right. And, you know, again, for junior reps, that it can be difficult. It can be difficult because, again, in their mind, they believe they are serving the customer. But really they're just being busy, right? And so we have to take a step back. And I get caught up too. I mean, it's human nature to want to go solve the surface or superficial requests that's been sort of given to you, but you are in fact potentially wasting their time, but not really getting to the meat of the issue. And that's the biggest thing for both the rep and the customer, is like, let's make sure this is a really good use of everyone's time, because
the client is getting paid full. The rep is probably only getting paid half until they close something.
Yeah, exactly right. So
how about the hyper competitiveness of it? How do you differentiate? How do you block out your competition?
It's a complex soup, man, I'll tell you, and it is hard. But, you know, because, like, look, I mean, there's a whole half of that equation that's really outside of sales' purview, right? And that is like, what are we bringing to market? And we'll leave that for another interview. But in terms of like sales, like, you know, what's so funny is we've had a couple great opportunities cross our path recently, and I'd love to say that there's this magic sauce that, you know, we brought this amazing glittering insight that they were like, we just must work with you. But honestly, it has really just been diligent, hard work, managing expectations appropriately, staying in front of them, and doing what we say we're going to do. It's integrity of action, right? Of literally just saying, this is what makes us different in these 4 areas. This is my aim personally, professionally, to do what I want to do for you, and then doing the thing. It's super simple. I mean, but what's shocking is that there are a lot of folks, organizations, et cetera, that fall short of that.
Because they think they're doing it. But it doesn't matter what they think. It matters what the client thinks, right?
You're so good. It's so right. So true.
No one's sitting around, you know, Jeff, I'm just telling them what they want to hear. Exactly. People sense it. I mean, I always use like the contractor analogy. You want a new kitchen, right? What do you know? But you may have one thing that matters, the
Sure.
refrigerator,
That's right.
right? Some brand name or some,
Mhm.
granite countertop. But then there's like 50 other things that have to be decided on.
Yeah, the freaking hardware on the silverware drawer, I mean, like the hinge type, like, I mean,
Right.
I have
But
no
yet the
idea.
client doesn't want to answer or
Right.
decide on all of these. They want you to curate
That's
this.
exactly right. And man, that is the art of this profession in a lot of ways. And it's something that we wrestle with because you can be inclined to show up with a checklist, right? Of like, tell me this, and man, is it not only ineffective, like no one wants to work with that person. Like you want to have a human conversation. Now, granted,
Right. And they're going to go with the contractor that gets them.
totally, totally.
Now, how many people can do that kitchen? Right? There's probably 50 people within 50 miles, right? Some could do it 10% better, 10% worse. But that communication and that getting of what you have in your mind that you can't articulate.
Right. It's reading between the lines, right?
Oh,
And man, I mean, I wish you could bottle that up and shoot it into my veins, right? But like, it just comes from experience, I think. Just comes
yeah.
from,
And I think what you talked about, that cognitive empathy, putting
Hmm.
yourself in their place.
Did I say that? It sounds smart. Wow.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the
You
first
said
time.
that. You
Okay.
said that earlier. But yeah, and I think your background develops it. But coming out of college and coming out of either development or marketing, you don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I wish I fortunately I'm so privileged to be able to like mentor a lot of folks at that early stage. And it really is like a privilege and an honor for the folks that want to partake in that process and allow me in, right? And it's so funny, man, because I myself get frustrated like trying to explain those kinds of concepts. It's very tough, but it has just occurred kind of organically over the course of 20 years of serving customers in this way. I don't know what to tell them, you know what I mean? I'm just like,
Well,
yeah.
what part of either your game would you have liked to develop more?
Well, I know exactly what part of the game, and like this is why I'm so excited to talk to you. And I've had my eye like on your course forever, man. Because, and the more experience and confident I get, I mean, listen, I'm still very humble. Like I know that there are parts of my game that I still don't have a good grip on, and I think like there's this. I was just thinking before we got on. There's this part of the deal where it's like the honeymoon, right? It's
I
like
know what you're talking
the
about.
rep's like, we got an opportunity, and I'm like, we got the solution, and everyone's great. And like, this is the fun and easy part, right? But after the honeymoon, it's like, okay, how do we get this thing through? And the rep's like, well, we just give them the quote, we just give them the price, right? And then you're like,
Yeah, they sprinted down to procurement.
right. And it's so easy to fall into this trap of like, just give them the proposal and everything will take care of itself. And it never does, or rarely, if ever does. And like, this is the moment where you have got to have, I've heard some other people refer to it in less crude or more crude terms, perhaps, but it takes some fortitude.
Well, you have to understand what's going on internally at their company,
Mm.
because the dating is over,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I hate to use marriage, but you get the contracts, the prenup, right?
Mm.
So you go from this very romantic,
Yeah, right.
everybody's,
Yeah.
and all of a
Wow.
sudden now we're talking about, well, wait a second, if we have one
Termination
kid, you get
clause.
this,
Yeah.
and after 10 years, something goes, but how about if this happens? And all of a sudden, well, is he the best you found? Remember
Yeah,
Jerry?
you're like, maybe
Jerry was so sweet, right?
like, yeah, he had hair
The-
coming out of his ears, but he really wanted to
right.
please you.
The rep thinks they give the quote, they high five the manager, they hit procurement, and they say,
Yeah,
Jenny,
it's going in.
issue this today.
Right.
And Jenny looks at you. That's not how it works.
Yeah. So like that process of you know what it is like maintaining control of the deal at that stage when everyone wants to do business, right? But it's like, listen, as soon as you give them that quota, that statement of work, man, it is totally, totally out of your hands. And you have lost control of the deal. Now that is an inevitable part of the deal, but that is the last thing you have control over. And, you know, I still don't think like I've figured out, you know, the right answer there. I mean, the closest I've gotten is like maybe teasing the customer, sharing it. Let's get through the prenup phase. Then you may have the dessert. I don't know, but
well, you got to understand the people we're dealing with want it, need it, like it. But then there's the people that have to pay for it.
That's right.
Right. It's like, you know, your kids want to go to Disney World, but you're like, Wally World is 10 miles away.
Yeah. Right. The credit card company's like, slow down, bucko. Like, what's happening? And so like, yeah.
And this is what's changed today when we talk about the attention span. What also has changed is everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah.
And the higher you go up, they don't understand this stuff.
No.
So they start asking people.
Why? Yeah.
And the natural thing is to stall.
Yeah, do nothing. Right.
Nothing. Well, wait a minute.
Maybe this problem will go away. Like.
We can wait for the next technology.
Yeah. And to their credit, a lot of times that happens. But we in sales, like, you know, if we've done our job, we understand that there is a cost to not taking action. And so that has to be a part, like a very explicit part of your sort of presentation and proposal is.
Right. And you know, what I teach is that proposal is more often than not the reason they don't, not because of what's on it, but because you think that is the end of the sales process, when that's really, you're only 20% or 50% into it.
Interesting.
You know, because I spent my life doing all that work selling new technology. And all of a sudden, you know, 3, 6, 9 months into it, they're not calling me back.
Yeah.
And maybe they're busy in procurement writing up the order.
Yeah, naturally. No. Meanwhile, they're going, do I really need this shiny new rock, right?
Yeah. So believe me, you learn from that pain. But the problem is it takes a long time to learn how to do that.
Interesting. Hey, I've got one more invention for you before we wrap the interview. Like, the other thing that has been so challenging recently is just like video, you know, this video, I mean, selling in the pandemic is really awful. I mean, it's really awful. I mean, many things have been awful about the pandemic. This is just one other awful thing, right? And, you know, another thing that I've been really good at is just connecting with people and forming a personal thing. Maybe you see a plaque on the wall, you can strike it, you know, like that stuff is gone, man. I mean, you hop on these calls and there's like maybe 10 seconds of pleasantries and then you're into, you know, the business. And like finding the rapport and the connection has been so hard. So I invented this thing. Are you ready? This is just like literally, usually the second call with the customer when, you know, they're cool, the vibe is right. I go, hey, look, would you entertain me for just 2 minutes? We never get to know each other anymore, but I really think it's important that we understand who we're dealing with. So I invented this thing. Here you go, hold up here. This is the BOLO rapport. The BOLO rapport. This is the BOLO. The BOLO rapport. So when you need to get to know somebody, you reach for the BOLO rapport. And I have in here questions that you would ask anybody's grandma. They're perfectly harmless, but so just go, hey, here's what I want to know about you. It's a random selection. So favorite Muppet? Do you have a favorite Muppet? You know, or I mean, like we get into some really fascinating discussions over the best Winter Olympic event, you know, or something like that, and it just gets everybody out of the like shields go down when we start arguing over the luge versus the biathlon. But that's free. Any of your viewers can, you know,
that's free.
Steal that and use it. Just cut up some stupid questions and break the ice with your customers. It's something to try to to try to make this a little more human, this video, very non-human process.
Great. Hey, Jeff, I appreciate the bowl of rapport and the rest of the interview.
Good.
Where can people go to follow you and order the bowl?
Follow me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'd love to connect with you there, and I'm eager to continue the conversation.